This is a car I've been waiting to drive for a very long time. It's been 8 years since I last drove a Tesla, a Model S in the United States. How has the brand evolved with this 2020 offering? Loved by millions, loathed by a few, and generally celebrated by motoring journalists around the world. This is the Tesla Model 3. I'm Jonathan McFeet, and today on EV Brief, we're going for a drive. I want to start here on the inside because this is the part of the car that is perhaps the most radical departure for consumers and the part that points to the future of how we interact with personal transport. Accessing the car by either RFID card or the Tesla app on your smartphone, you're greeted with an interior that is delightfully devoid of things and clutter. Don't get me wrong, I love the fighter jet feel of a button-laden Porsche cockpit, but there's something refreshing and relaxing about the Model 3's interior. Animal-free inside the cabin from 2020, this 2019 model still features a leather steering wheel, but there's a softness and suppleness to the seats that you tell yourself couldn't possibly be vinyl. These seats are extremely comfortable and plush, though you do sit on them rather than in them, and I feel with the G-forces this car can carry that they could do with a little more side support and thigh support. The steering wheel is a nice, small, sporty size, though the rim is a little chunky. It also features two scroll wheels, essentially the only buttons in the interior relating to operating the vehicle. The interior quality overall is great and represents a step up from previous Tesla models. Materials on the dash, doors, console, a mix of vinyl and Alcantara. There is some hard plastic down near the console area, and the lids for these feel a little flimsy if I'm honest. The plastics on the inside of the door jambs feel a little brittle, and I wish the rear boot lid closed with more of a thunk than a hollow metal sound. But similarly priced offerings from Audi and Mercedes also feature some questionable plastics these days in the name of cost cutting, and my nitpicking just demonstrates how hard you have to look to find fault with this car. There are definitely improvements to be made, but on the whole this car's touch points feel solid, and it's fascinating to see how quickly Tesla is evolving in terms of refinement and quality. A single piece of matte timber straddles the dash, capped by a single long air vent. Because there is no bulky engine in front, the windscreen sits low over the dash, giving occupants a lovely view of the front wheel arches. As someone who considers themselves a car enthusiast, I've spent a lot of time in many different cars over the years. For me, manufacturers who are the outright leaders in car ergonomics are Porsche, Volkswagen, and now Tesla. On the whole, this large 15-inch screen manages all vehicle systems beautifully, and it's surprising how quickly one adapts to its use, but more on that later. Boot space is great with 425 litres of capacity and underfloor storage, though its aperture is quite narrow compared to liftback sedans like the Skoda Octavia, Audi A5 and the new Polestar 2. There's also a front boot, or trunk, or frunk, or fruit, whatever you want to call it, with space for a couple of soft bags or some groceries. Rear seat space is fine for adults with a nice flat floor, good shoulder room and knee room, though passengers over 6 foot may bump the roof glass with their heads. In terms of exterior design, this isn't a car that gets many looks on the street, aside from perhaps the look of surprise when you've snuck up behind people. That's not to say it isn't good looking, it's just a bit nondescript, especially in white. At 4.7 metres long, the Model 3 is shorter than an Audi A4 or BMW 3 Series sedan, and visually is less bulky than BMW's new G20 3 Series. The side profile is quite dynamic, gently sweeping up to the rear. Those flush with the bodywork door handles are a nice touch, though they do confound first-time users. No doubt they help to contribute to the Model 3's slippery drag coefficient of 0.23 CD. When you've stared at it for a few days, lived with it, and even washed it by hand, you start to appreciate the design and really notice some of the exterior highlights. That gently sloping, elegant front with pronounced front fenders, the long sweep of the glass area from the smoothly raked windscreen right back to the rear of the car. The pronounced hip line. It's very nice without being revolutionary. It's quite elegant in profile, a bit Aston Martin-esque in a front three-quarter view, but the grille-less front is a bit blunt straight on. The performance model adds bigger wheels, redder brake calipers, and a carbon fibre spoiler for some visual interest. Many critics cite the complexities of charging an EV as a major barrier, but Tesla is here to blow those preconceptions out of the water. Let's get one thing straight, you can charge this car quite effortlessly on a home power point. Plug the supplied charger into the wall, point the plug at the car, stick it in and voila, the juice is flowing. You can even view the state of charge on your phone and set a schedule for charging to align with your off-peak electricity periods. Of course, those with solar panels receive the smug satisfaction of free energy for their cars, but for the rest of us, I estimate charging from 15 to 80% took around 15 hours on a standard household plug delivering around 2 kilowatts, and doubled my daily electricity usage for the house to around 40 to 45 kilowatt hours, or $10 to $12 per day. After around 300 kilometres of driving, that's about a third the cost of refuelling with premium unleaded petrol. Any way you look at it, that's cheap motoring. The other option, of course, is Tesla's brilliant supercharger network. With 36 sites in Australia and close to 2,000 worldwide, Tesla has absolutely dominated the industry in providing a proprietary charging network for its customers. While companies like ChargeFox and the NRMA and EV Networks also provide ultra-rapid charging, Tesla's is literally plug and play, with the car automatically authorising the charging and taking payment if required, being charged to your Tesla account. There's no worrying about other apps or new payment methods, it just works. You do pay for the privilege though, with a rapid charge for a Model 3 costing 52 cents per kilowatt hour in Australia, or around $35 for an 80% charge. Superchargers are not designed for daily use, it must be said. The idea is that they are designed for long road trips or a quick top-up where you need to be off the road for as little time as possible. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the average commute distance for Australian motorists is 16 kilometres. Close to 73% of people commute less than 20 kilometres to work, and the COVID-19 situation has completely changed the work and commuting patterns of millions, possibly indefinitely, meaning that the range of this Standard Range Plus Model 3 is over 7 times greater than the daily needs of most in this country. And speaking of range, officially it's 460 kilometres for this model, or 490 for the 2021 Model 3 Standard Range Plus, on a day of driving that combined city traffic, highway driving, spirited driving on twisty roads and steep descents and ascents. We completed around 270 kilometres with 15% battery remaining. I have no doubt the car could easily achieve 320 kilometres of range in regular driving conditions. On the road, once you get past the fun of shocking your passengers with 190 kilowatts and 375 newton meters of torque available instantly and silently, the Model 3 Standard Range Plus has a lot to offer. Firstly, driving an electric car is very different to anything with a conventional engine. Braking is not something that you have to do often. The drivetrain recuperates energy from the brakes that is normally lost as heat and actively channels it back into the battery. In practice, this means when you lift off the throttle pedal, the car will come to a complete stop from 60 kilometers an hour in what felt like around 100 meters or so. It's much smarter to drive with one pedal where you're preempting the movements of the traffic in front, letting off the accelerator pedal and allowing the vehicle to coast and regenerate electricity without using the brakes. Try to maximise energy recuperation and minimise energy consumption by predicting traffic flow and preempting other road users' behaviour. Maybe I'm getting old, but I found it fun. The steering feel is sophisticated without presenting any real feel or involvement, but it is effortless and does hide the weight of the vehicle surprisingly, which in this case is 1,612 kilos. It's also nice and quick too, with 2 turns lock to lock. The steering feel is customisable with 3 different settings. The sport setting I quite like, as it adds a bit of weight, almost fooling the driver into thinking you're in something lighter and sportier. The conventional steel suspension, however, is not customisable like its more expensive S and X siblings. Relying on steel springs, the Model 3 has quite a firm setup. The low centre of gravity certainly helps minimise body roll, there's hardly any unbelievably, but the car doesn't hunker down into corners the way, say, a BMW 3 Series does. It's certainly competent, but not involving. Perhaps the Performance Model 3 improves on this. Now, inside the glass house of the Model 3 is a really nice place to be. It's obviously incredibly quiet, but there's a lot of glass area. You've got this large moonroof above. You've also got pretty good visibility out the sides with low sills, though I will say the A-pillar is pretty chunky. Also, the rear window is more of a slit in the rear vision mirror, but when you're reversing that doesn't really matter because you've got the cameras around the car. There's been a bit of criticism around the fact that Tesla has this centralised speed and infotainment display, and also that the Model 3 doesn't have a heads-up display like quite a few European vehicles. But to be honest, I really don't mind it, and after driving this car for a couple of days, I've got really used to just looking down slightly to the left for my speed, and it's almost visible in your peripheral when you're looking straight ahead anyway. Tesla's famed Autopilot is now standard with full self-driving in beta, and additional features being a standalone option. It allows you to relax. You have to pay attention certainly, but it reduces stress in heavy traffic and on motorways. Its operation is also wonderfully intuitive. 1 tap down on the gear selector lever for cruise control, 2 taps down for autopilot cruise control. You can then adjust the maximum speed by pressing plus or minus on the central display, or you can use the right-hand scroll wheel to scroll up or down. And bumping it left or right adjusts the distance maintained to the car in front. The system's integration with Google Maps, satellite and traffic data and the car's cameras is exceptional. I've driven many vehicles with adaptive cruise control, but none drive with the Tesla's finesse. Compared to traditional auto steer systems from the likes of Mercedes, Audi, BMW, it's really nice in this car where you might have established a gap between you and the car in front, but then there's a big line of traffic up ahead. The Tesla really does see that and will start to brake you early. In other manufacturers' vehicles, it'll happily power along at 50 or 60 kilometers an hour right up until it detects a vehicle in that very close proximity that you've set, whether it's 1 car length or 2 car lengths, and then it will slam on the brakes, but often you don't get a chance to test that because you actually want to brake the car earlier. So the Tesla is actually seeing way ahead of you and actually predicting what's going to need to happen, and it slows you down. It still occasionally gets cold feet at certain points and disengages, and tends to sit a little too far to the right of the lane, which is a bit disconcerting when facing undivided oncoming traffic, but on the whole, it's brilliant. Take this intersection on Sydney's Western Distributor Freeway, leading onto the Sydney Harbour Bridge. The freeway forks, yet based on the navigation system, the car was able to correctly make a split-second decision and navigate the fork effortlessly. Tesla's in-house processing brain, the Autopilot Hardware 3.0 chip, is largely responsible for the car's self-driving brilliance, but more on that later. On Australia's coarse chip and pretty average roads, the Model 3 on 18-inch wheels and Michelin tyres handles noise and vibration beautifully. The aerodynamic bodywork minimises wind noise at speed, tyre hum is present but not intrusive, and the car feels solid, lacking the squeaks and rattles I was expecting to hear when there's no engine noise masking the sound. This is definitely a car you can comfortably spend a lot of time in. Luckily, Tesla gives you plenty of toys, customizability and data through its centrally mounted screen. There's arcade games, driving games, video streaming, karaoke and even a music sequencer with built-in loops. There's a web browser, Netflix and Spotify, and this connectivity is included for free for 12 months. The amount of real-time data and information will delight any tech nerd and possibly confound anyone who isn't that interested. The system is clever too, highlighting time of day specific speed limits like school zones and providing real-time feedback of when you're consuming battery under acceleration or putting energy back into the car via regenerative braking. It doesn't always get the speed limits right, which can be annoying if autopilot is activated. Having the car slow down when there is no speed limit change can annoy drivers behind. It's up to you to then manually override the car and increase the maximum speed. Energy consumption over a user-defined period is on display, as well as consumption based on your navigation system destination. The car will tell you your arrival state of charge based on your driving, the traffic and the road conditions and the route chosen. The in-car navigation system knows the location of all Tesla superchargers, of course, and it can tell you how many bays are currently occupied. The car also preconditions the battery if you set a supercharger as your destination to ensure an optimal charge rate and to maximise the health of your battery pack. Now, a lot has been mentioned about Tesla's central display setup. Whether you like it or not, you need to understand that the design is part of Tesla's future-proofing. By designing out physical switches and actions and taking the car fully digital, this improves the user experience as additional features can be added or removed. It makes the car less complex and expensive to design and build, and it provides a blank slate for the future as envisioned by Tesla, one that is filled with autonomous Model 3s driving people around. Need to adjust the air vent? It's done through the screen via this nifty animation. While it certainly possesses the wow factor, something that is effortless while driving in a regular car now takes multiple clicks on the screen, and the need to slide your finger around. Perhaps not everything should be digitized. The screen experience is overwhelmingly positive, however. While other manufacturers like Porsche, Audi and Volkswagen now feature 2, 3 or even 4 screens in some models, Tesla has opted for one excellent screen. Its responsiveness and clarity is second to none in in-car entertainment and features almost no latency. It's easy to navigate and utilises the same techniques of swipe, scroll and pinch that most of us have learnt from our phones. Tesla has opted not to include Android Auto or Apple CarPlay in the Model 3, or perhaps opted to not hand over vast sums of cash to Apple and Alphabet. While the driver certainly has enough entertainment to keep busy, I enjoy the continuity of UI from my phone that Android Auto provides and the ability to hear and respond to WhatsApp, text and Facebook messages via voice. Tesla's voice command system is good, allowing you to easily call people, adjust vehicle settings and enter navigation destinations, but I was surprised to find that without a cell signal, you can't even control vehicle functions via voice, unlike most other vehicles with OEM voice systems. With all aspects of the car now digital and the Model 3 featuring a permanent LTE connection, over-the-air updates are possible, much like a phone. Tesla leads in pushing new software to its customer vehicles, and you can schedule a software update for when the car is not being used. Over the lifespan of the Model 3, there have been some 150 plus software updates for this car, some minor and some major. Everything ranging from improvements to the UI, to additional features like games, Sentry mode recording for security when the car is parked, dog mode whereby the climate control runs when you leave your pet in the car, and it lets passers-by know that the dog is safe, to enhanced battery efficiency, navigate on Autopilot for Australia, Smart Summon where you can call your car over via your phone, and much, much more. Servicing with an electric car is far less frequent. There's no oil or oil filters to change. There's no timing chain to worry about. While Tesla recommends things like tyre rotation at set intervals and air filter changes every 2 years, the concept of servicing as we know it is being turned on its head by Tesla. If you need work carried out, you can book an appointment through your Tesla app, and in many cases a mobile technician will come to you. In some cases the car will even automatically diagnose issues and place an order for the parts required. With much initial criticism around wait times for parts in the Tesla network, it's great to see the company doing things to try and streamline the customer experience. Finally, let's talk a little about the tech behind, well, all this tech. For years, Tesla has relied upon California-based NVIDIA for its system-on-a-chip hardware that was behind all the vehicles, computational decisions and autonomous driving. Tesla went out on its own in 2018, revealing that it had been working on an in-house answer that was better than NVIDIA's offering. Now known as Hardware version 3, the system uses 2 processors, each with separate RAM and flash memory for redundancy in case any component fails, much like an aircraft. Comprising a graphics processing unit, a central processing unit, and Tesla's neural processing units, the system can process over 140 trillion operations, or 5 times that of the previous NVIDIA system. Tesla's neural processors receive all the data from driver inputs, cameras, and the vehicle's sensors, and not only is this used to control the car, but it is sent to Tesla's neural network along with data from hundreds of thousands of other Teslas and the billions of kilometers driven. All of this is used to train Tesla's prediction network in imitation learning, understanding what a human driver would do in any given situation by connecting what the car sees on the road in the present and what actions have been taken by drivers in the past. So what's it all for? A future of autonomous Teslas, referred to as robotaxis of course. The idea being, you could be at work or relaxing on the weekend and meanwhile your car is out, earning money for you by driving people around, completely autonomously. Very impressive. As I get back into my petrol-powered VW Golf after a few days in the Model 3, I sense that I'll be disappointed in its lack of technological wizardry, relative performance to the Tesla and lack of smart eco-features. But here's the thing, even though it's a dinosaur running on dinosaur juice on what feels like borrowed time, this car still provides a lot of fun on a budget with its raughty exhaust note, engaging handling and general combination of playfulness and refinement. It's engaging, enjoyable and tactile. I can envision a future where we may still own a petrol car only as a weekend extravagance, a relic of the past and a piece of 20th century history, but we will commute, travel, deliver, drive and ride silently in electrified transportation. But back to the Tesla. EV uptake in Australia is slow, making up around 0.6% of the new car market. That's due to a combination of a lot of factors that we won't get into in this video. In a world filled with smartphones, tablets, connected watches and even smart fridges, it seems only natural that the next step is to have a smart car, one that we plug in at night, don't have to regularly service, is always at the right temperature before we hop in, plays Netflix and saves our lives in an emergency. For now, there's still a place for internal combustion engines, but I have no doubt that the Model 3 is the future of personal transport.